History is something more than events, products, and milestones. It's little trips that people take. It's the laughter and the work that make it all worthwhile. Part of our story is looking back, learning what happened. After that, we'll move ahead to recognize what can be. As long ago as 1903, Henry Leland, a Vermont Yankee and one of Cadillac's originators, was looking ahead. Now, I never knew Mr. Leland, but I know about him. He did what he had to do, and then a little more. One cold winter day, his friend suffered a fatal blow while trying to hand crank his car on the Belle Isle Bridge. Right then, Leland determined that something should be done to develop a self-starter. He recruited Charles Boss Kettering and his engineers. In 1912, the problem was solved. By 1918, 98% of American cars featured the Delco self-starter. Even in early beginnings, he understood world-class innovation, the thinking and action. It's a well-founded tradition. Leland was a stickler for precision. Back in 1901, he and his machine shop were given an order for 2,000 engines from Olds. Because he demanded closer tolerance limits, his engine developed 27% more horsepower than that of a competitor building the identical design. The ability to make superior engines, transmissions, and steering gears was the cornerstone of forming the Cadillac Automobile Company. In 1907, Leland had imported the first Johansson blocks and gauges. They enabled Cadillac to achieve highest standards and precise tolerances. Not only that, all Cadillac parts became instantly and accurately interchangeable. One way to demonstrate world class was to enter a unique international quality contest. Cadillac did that in 1908. All 721 parts of 3 randomly selected Cadillacs were dismantled and tossed in with 89 other parts. The cars were then reassembled by their builders and driven 500 miles. As a result, Cadillac won the Dewar Trophy in England, earning the slogan, "Standard of the World." Precise interchangeability made the difference. That's Henry's son, Wilfred, enjoying and protecting the famous trophy. By 1910, Cadillac was the first car manufacturer to offer a closed model as standard equipment. Up to this time, cars had been like buggies, good for gaining the beneficial rays of the sun, less than great in a rainstorm. Henry Leland and his companions put Cadillac another notch ahead, producing and marketing a 1912 model with a self-starter, a lighting and ignition system. That automobile won another Dewar Trophy. Cadillac was the only car to ever win the high international honor twice. It was 1914 when Cadillac designed and manufactured the first production V-type engine with 8 cylinders, a major step in the development of high-speed, high-compression engines. It was controversial. There were those who called it too powerful. Cadillac responded by publishing the now famous penalty of leadership ad, saying, among other things, that when a man's work becomes a standard for the whole world, it also becomes a target for the envious few. It concludes, that which deserves to live, lives. The next few years were eventful in many ways. For one, the First World War broke out in Europe. The Cadillac touring car became the official car for the Allied Expeditionary Force's famed General Blackjack Pershing and his staff officers. At the original plant on Fort Street, they were building airplanes. That's right, airplanes. That's how it got started. The 7 Fisher brothers trained the early craftsmen for their work. As a result, the Fishers gained the largest aircraft contract ever awarded at the time. In the months that passed, they hit their peak production of 40 aircraft in a single day. Most of the planes were British-designed de Havillands. A total of 1,600 of these primitive open-air fighters were destined to aid the Allied cause, dogfighting over the trenches of France. Other contracts called for 5 Italian Caproni biplane bombers and 400 J-1 trainers, all built between January and December of the year 1918. The test pilots were a hearty and glamorous crew. They taxied right down 4th Street and took production planes off into the wind from a nearby makeshift airstrip. Totals for 1918, 2,005 aircraft, all world class. After the November armistice, the contract ended. The American doughboys came sailing and marching home. The veterans were back, looking for jobs. Our town had the answer. It was a time when Detroit and its products were coming into their own. The growth of the automobile market meant that traffic controls were becoming necessary on the city streets. The automobile was no longer a novelty. The horse was. A twinkle in the eye sparked the beginning of an American love affair. A significant portion of the public was seeking more than just getting from the city to the country. Now they wanted to ride and arrive in faraway places and do it in style. The Fisher brothers understood the market. In 1919, they bought the aircraft plant from the government. They began building deluxe auto bodies for all those car companies whose customers wanted to travel first class. Now, everyone knows the phrase, body by Fisher, world-class quality. There was a certain faith expressed in the reliability of these capable people, and it was well-founded. Some were only months away from docking on Ellis Island and glimpsing the Statue of Liberty for the first time. Some also came through Canada. Your grandfather could be in this picture. In the years between 1919 and 1926, the bodies for Fords, Dodges, Chryslers, and Maxwells were built at 4th Street. However, the main line of production was assembling wood and metal bodies for Buick. Finely crafted wood was king at that time. The high volume necessitated an addition that was finalized in 1922. A 6-story building added 1.25 million square feet to the original facility known as Plant 18. During the following 4 years, Buick began taking a larger and larger portion of the plant output. The others had almost disappeared. Eventually, Buick moved to Flint. Meanwhile, the Cadillac plant was turning out cars that White House residents favored and the world noticed. By 1923, the remarkable Clark Street plant was completed, and it was a wonder of the industrial world. It was a 2.1 million square foot complex. It brought together 77 operations that had been scattered all over the city. Not only were cars rolling off the line at an unprecedented rate, the quality-conscious people were producing a level of excellence never before realized. His name was Harley Earl. He came to GM in 1927 to style the first LaSalle. He stayed on, and for the next 30 years, Earl and his California thinking combined the art of styling with the science of engineering. Previously, the engineers designed the cars. Only the custom shops concerned themselves with the look of things. Now, the appearance of the car became as significant as the engineering blueprints. In time, all the others followed suit. With Earl as the styling leader, Cadillac demonstrated world-class creativity. Plant 18 began producing bodies for Cadillacs and for its elegant spin-off, LaSalle. The changeover marked the beginning of the long and proud association of the two plants. It was in 1931 that the name Fleetwood was applied to Fisher Body Plant 18. The story goes that the Fisher brothers had purchased a custom body plant and moved many of its skilled artisans from Fleetwood, Pennsylvania to Detroit. The name Fleetwood is still remembered. Plant 18 only by old-timers. In the 1930s, the Depression made deep dents in the world economy. Our two plants continued to turn out viable cars for those who could afford precision, luxury, and high-quality features. Sure, Cadillac and Fleetwood suffered along with all the others. The volume wasn't there, but the excellence was, and a fine, hard-won reputation remained untarnished. The automobile was destined to become more than a chariot for a discriminating and wealthy few. Owning a car was to become a major expectation of all Americans. It would take a new kind of labor force to make that dream come true. In 1937, the United Automobile Workers successfully gained recognition at GM to represent this emerging labor force. For the first time, the avenue of negotiation between management and labor was opened. Fleetwood Local 15 and Cadillac Local 22 were there at the beginning. Many logical and natural changes took place. Change had evolved into a way of life. By 1940, war was inevitable. After a tragic Sunday in December of 1941, we were in it, up to here. They called it World War II. Cadillac, Fleetwood, and all of General Motors began producing for the war effort. And that meant switching a lot of things around. Every challenge was met with Michigan ingenuity and Wayne County know-how. During those critical years, Fleetwood built cowlings, exhaust collection systems, and other production assemblies and tools for aircraft, tanks, and anti-aircraft guns. Just 55 days after the dramatic hit at Pearl Harbor, the first M5 tanks rolled off the assembly line where Cadillacs had been produced. Later, it was light tanks, then engines for P-38 and P-39 attack planes. Deeper into the production struggle, both plants received the Army-Navy E for Excellence. The pilots did the flying, but the two plants with the Cadillac connection helped put flying fortresses over the bearing plants of Schweinfurt, B-25s over Japan, and B-29s over Okinawa. They also equipped General Patton with tanks to cross the Rhine and into Germany. Call it a world-class war. Nobody produced better equipment and machinery than we did. Winning is working together. Once again, the doughboys, now called GIs, came home looking for work for wives, children, homes, and cars. It was boomtown for the whole economy. The veterans rolled up their sleeves and went to work. Often now they worked beside women who had earned their place on the production lines. With victory and prosperity, it was only natural that the union side of the coin became restless. Their wages had been voluntarily frozen during the war, and new benefits were needed to make up for lost advantages. Not the least of negotiating discussions was equal pay for men and women. We now understand that nothing stays the same forever and ever. Security is the result of flexibility, our willingness to compete with open minds, new ideas, better products, and advanced methods. It boils down to a Detroit readiness to change, a Michigan outlook and understanding of the future. We take pride in discovering better methods to accomplish different tasks, and in that way to create new products. We learn that there are new markets for whatever we do well. There are people out there waiting to buy whatever we can do better. Americans were moving to the suburbs. They were driving on the new interstates, to the beaches, the mountains, and even to grandmother's house and their jobs. The markets were moving, but it became apparent that not all Americans were driving American-made cars. The imports arrived on our shores from Germany, Japan, Sweden, France, England, and Italy. The competition had become world-class, and it was up to us to meet it and beat it. A change in attitude was topmost on the list. That had to be followed by action. It became only natural and necessary to communicate and understand each other. We had to meet every new challenge together, not at different levels with separate goals, but simply as people with the same forward thinking, a shared experience. Our greatest purpose, to compete on a world-class basis. Out of our concerted effort came a new respect for the individual and the problems that we all face. The quality of work life became more than a catchphrase and a cleanup project. It was constantly evolving so that each new idea, whether from people on the line or people in the offices, became a topic of consideration and a plan of action. Listening to each other was the principle. Getting it done right was the action. After all, we had a tradition of excellence to maintain. Change was an inevitable part of our tradition. New plants were built, sometimes at new locations. People have to keep up with the new methods and ever-swirling markets and regulations. All of our cars are now being measured on a world-class quality basis. People need training to build quality the new way. So it was accomplished. Our own people learn how to meet a challenge together. Quality is in their bloodlines. Together, they have a respect for the past and an eye toward the future. Together means Fleetwood and Clark Street are no longer just a connection. New thinking and the January '85 reorganization made us one. The change developed a common name, a single purpose, a tight-knit group of knowledgeable people with open minds and a strong desire to be better. Not just better than Made in America, better than anyone, anywhere in the whole world. If you're going to be better, you have to check yourselves and each other. On a daily basis, 10 cars are randomly selected off the line. They are audited, checked for quality of workmanship right down to a gnat's knee. It's a very tough, highly judgmental combination of auditors. Each evening, different people drive those cars home, keeping them overnight. The family and neighbors see them talk about it. They're open about what they like and what they don't like. The employee will come back with both compliments and complaints. The good news is taken in stride. The bad news becomes a source of investigation. We don't want any mistake to happen again. Acting on self-evaluation is the only way to achieve world-class recognition. The continuing need for improvement always comes up at employee participation group meetings. Sure, quality of performance is discussed, but so is the need for better working conditions and dozens of different means of communication. Excellent communication is our principal means of improvement. Computer screens all over the plant, called the Commie Network, enable employees to quickly grasp the latest statistical news as soon as it's out. This is factual information, not gossip. How many absentees were there today? How does a particular department perform? How many hours does it take us to build a car? How many were shipped yesterday? This is like a battleship crew. Everyone is in the same boat. Meetings of the Joint Steering Committee include management executives and elected representatives from the two different locals. There are no secrets. Forward planning to be right out in the open. We want everyone to know where we are going and why. You must know the other guy's accomplishments as well as your own. In world-class circles, it is known as competitive assessment. Meetings in Ann Arbor, Boston, Washington, D.C., and Solidarity House generate up-to-date information on what other world-class producers are doing, what standards they are meeting, and how. It's intelligence gathering. Once we learn it, then everybody in our plant has to know it. On special occasions, the plant manager will conduct a mass meeting of all employees, all for a reason: communication. Everybody should know what's happening. Where are we? Where are we going from here? How are we going to get there? Other, smaller group meetings are designed to cut right through the fog. We measure our quality against the others, not only quality. All meetings are as significant as a huddle. Call it team concept or participative management. It simply means we are determined to think and act in concert, to convey the common goals. At this plant, it is not considered great just to have educational programs. We feel the need to encourage each other to become aware, to take courses, to advance skills, to learn how to assume more responsibility. We can enhance the leadership qualities of all with a little inspiration. Inspiration comes from many places. Sometimes it's just the fun of seeing the people who ride around in your product. Other times it's a hands-on exercise, learning what can be accomplished with a touch of imagination. Recently, a group of our own plant enthusiasts designed and built a couple of special models in the plant. This limousine took just 20 days of dedication, a lot of ingenuity, and a willingness to do something extra. Henry Leland, Boss Kettering, Harley Earl, and all those who ever worked here would be proud to see the grace and beauty expressed in the project. The builders have the background of the past and the vision of the future in their hearts. Competitive assessment? How do we analyze ourselves? We're honest because we believe in each other. It means looking at our product, our performance, our own progress. How do we match up? It varies from time to time, but in the long run, we're ahead, we're better. That means we have to be continually aware and alert. It's more than 80 years now, and the people who live and work in this plant know there are ghosts here. Tradition. It's the spirit of working generations, each person making his or her contribution to the lively legend of two plants now become one. Our contribution must be world class. It's our world, our tradition.